Hello everybody, Catchy1383 with Catchy Gaming, and this is my Final Fantasy Rebirth gameplay journal number 6. I've been putting it off for a couple of days, mainly because I actually finished the game. I'm just playing catch-up. When I say finishing the game, I mean I finished the story. But I'm playing catch-up on the journals. But there's one thing I wanted to do before I did that, and I was going through the 97 game kind of one more time. I stopped at a certain point for story reasons for when part 3 eventually comes out. Because it's been a while since I played this. I mean, it was a couple years ago when I got serious and I went through and did all the achievements and all that other fun stuff. And before that, it was a really long time before I played this again. I think I actually played it on the PlayStation 2, like 15 years ago. So I felt like a refresher was needed because there's parts of the story that felt weird to me. And I definitely was remembering events, but I just couldn't remember when they happened in the game. So I went back and played through. And I really didn't remember what Gongaga was in the 97 game. It's literally just a blip in the map. It's like, pfft, you just pass through and that's it. You don't even have to do it. When I was looking for the village, I forgot it was directly south of the gold saucer. I just passed right by. I had one random encounter, and I was in Cosmos Canyon. That's how insignificant it is. So when it comes to just absolutely rewriting segments of a story, the writers for Rebirth told Peter Jackson to hold my beer, I got this. And just absolutely showed him up in terms of what a rewrite really is. So, Gongaga, I hope I'm just not going to just keep slaughtering that, is a very lush green area standing in quite the contrast to the desert that's literally just a river away. Sort of signifying that semi-environmental message that you have in there about destroying the earth, with there being much more green in comparison to the desert, which was attributed to the reactors being used to power the gold saucer. And then there's Gongaga itself, the village, which got a major overhaul in comparison to the 97 game, where there's a lot more people, a lot more buildings, and a lot less devastation in terms of what happened to the reactor. And then you also have a reference to the Crisis Core as well, mainly because that's where Zack let everybody know that he came from this village. But you also have a particular character, this reddish, pinkish-haired woman, Cicene, was originally in the Crisis Core game, and she is a Turk or former Turk. I'm not entirely sure. I want to say former Turk. And it took me a while to make the connection. I mean, at like an hour or two, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was the one woman from Final Fantasy Crisis Core. And to be honest, for this chapter, this is where they ramp up the complete and total departure from the story. I mean, they already kind of did that a lot, but this is where it takes a hard left turn in terms of just a complete and total rewrite, not so much as remake. So after doing my usual obligatory running around the village, talking to my companions, doing all the Queen's Blood stuff, looking for equipment, I move on with the story, and Cloud awkwardly stays in the one bedroom that Cicene offered for a whole entire group of 7 different people, but, you know, whatever. That includes her, so technically 8. Anyways, the whole entire party are alerted to a roaring sound. Now, I kind of glossed over this when I was covering the mountain path to Corel, in which you came across the ruins of a reactor, and there's a giant pool of Mako, and a giant, huge fish-like thing they called a weapon appeared out of it, and it had a big, huge, shiny sphere in it that they say was materia. I don't quite think it is, but it caught the attention of Shinra, and they want one for it because they think it's a giant piece of materia they can use for a weapon. Although I wasn't recording at the time in the 97 Final Fantasy game, that reactor's intact and working, so I guess kind of another major departure for the game in terms of story and events. And I kind of have to wonder how they're going to handle all the weapons in the third part of the game. Like the ultimate weapon, the ruby weapon, the emerald weapon, all those. How is that going to play out if their weapons are not these giant fish things, unless they're totally different weapons? I digress. So, Barrett, Red 13, and Cloud rush towards the downed reactor to go check it out. So this vast forest region of the Gongaga area is kind of a bit of a maze, and on top of that, I don't think Square really realized how easily I'm being distracted, or people like me are, because yeah, they're playing intense music and sort of trying to imply a sense of urgency. I definitely got sidetracked and did things along the way to the reactor instead of just going straight to the reactor. Like, I stopped to get this tower along the way, mainly so I didn't have to do it again on my way back, or find my way back there depending on what happened in the main story. So when the group gets there, you can see that the reactor's absolutely trashed, and that nature has been reclaiming the area. Again, sort of standing in contrast to an area with a working reactor, which doesn't quite make sense because the reactor out in the mountains in the Corel region was destroyed, and there wasn't that much green outside of the area of Costa del Sol. Anyways, this is when the Whispers make a return from Final Fantasy Remake, and it has a lot to do with Sephiroth here. And when I hear Sephiroth, I hear all the characters pronounce it Sephiroth and Sephiroth. Like they interchange the two. At least I'm pretty sure they do. And there's another thing that sort of drives me nuts about this game is they just have these rough transitions to cutscenes out of nowhere. I mean, yes, Scarlet did go visit the Gongaga reactor in the original 97 version of this game, but they just took that little, like, minute bit of story and gameplay and just stretched it out like a lot. So she's on her way to try and capture one of the weapons so she can get one of those giant pieces of materia out of it. Anyways, Cloud's party makes it through the reactor to get to the central part of it. And there are whispers everywhere. You start off a fight with a bunch of, I don't know, lab-created fiends. But then Sephiroth makes a appearance, and Cloud kind of starts to lose it. And Scarlet shows up. And she's using the same sort of power suit she used in the intermission when she fought Yuffie and Sonon. You then get to switch to the party of Tifa, Aerith, and Yuffie. And you get to ride the Forest Chocobos. And these are my favorite color Chocobos. Oh, I just love that dark green color. I spent a small fortune in Final Fantasy XIV to dye my bird a similar color. Not so much as dye, technically its feathers grow out that after you feed it a certain diet. So with the Chocobos, there's less potential for me to get distracted. It still happened, but yeah, you make your way to the reactor, and you fight Shinra instead of fiends. So when the group of ladies gets there, they take on Scarlet. Sort of, kind of, I guess, a revenge fight for Yuffie in some way. And speaking of Yuffie, I know I had the whole Yuffie shut the fuck up moment, which I still stand by. I just haven't pointed it out at this juncture or any point during this section of gameplay. She's still annoying as hell. But in terms of combat, she is really, really good. I will not deny that in any shape or form. I just don't like her dialogue enough to not use her because she doesn't shut up. And I kind of made the mistake of using the Phoenix material thinking it would do more than what it did. It does not. It's more of a support material. Probably would have been better off on Aerith than Yuffie, but whatever. But in terms of this fight, this is probably the most obnoxious boss fight, or probably the second most. I'll get to that like way down the road. But like for whatever reason, flying enemies are just super obnoxious in this game. I mean, you get used to it and you come up with hard counters for it. But considering this is a boss that has multiple weaknesses in different stages and what it's weak to and what you can do to damage it changes, this was just an irritating boss fight to get through because of how maneuverable it is, along with the whole entire your dodge is pretty much useless. And I tried dodging these big, huge drill arm things, and then I tried just moving out of the way without dodging. Doesn't matter. They most of the time will hit you, and if you get hit once, you're definitely going to get hit by the second one, which just seems like a really flawed bit of gameplay to me to punish the player in essence for getting hit once and not giving you a chance to dodge the second one. And that's kind of a reoccurring thing throughout this game, depending on what enemy you're fighting, where it doesn't matter if you dodge or block. I mean, yeah, you can block one hit, but they'll have a second hit incoming, and you cannot block again in that little window that they have to block again or dodge. And the dodge is just non existent unless you're Cloud or Tifa. You generally just can't get out of the way. Now, in terms of this fight, I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to the assess material on what was going on for that particular stage of the boss, which probably would have made it a lot easier, but I just sort of brute forced my way through it on normal difficulty at this point in time, because that's technically the highest I could go until I beat the story. Probably not the best way, but that's how I did it. After the battle with Scarlet, you go into a very, very long cutscene, including one where Cloud just goes nuts on a bunch of Shinra troops. And he even shows a little bit of lack of mercy here and just absolutely slaughters one of them. And it's actually one of the few times they show some blood in the game. But you can tell that Cloud's kind of losing his mind at this point in time. Or I guess you could say manipulated in some shape or form is more accurate than losing his mind. I mean, they kind of hit you over the head with it by pointing out that it's Sephiroth and that it's clearly Sephiroth doing the manipulation. And Cloud tries to kill her, knocking her off a ledge and into the pool of Mako, which this, I don't know, kind of begs the question because a lot of them are having issues with the Mako fumes, and here she is just taking a complete and total dip in it, and she seems to be okay. And taking into consideration all the robed men that the group have been following have been poisoned by Mako / their former soldiers, so they have that issue going on. Anyways, this is where it takes an even harder left turn in terms of the story from the 97 game by Tifa being swallowed by one of the weapons. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, I wonder where this is going to go. Are they going to show her inside it? And I was not disappointed in that. So this particular weapon takes her for a ride through the life stream, showing her that there's a conflict between the planet and Sephiroth. Depicted here by the use of the White Whispers versus the Black Whispers, which the White Whispers are now a thing that they just introduced. Kind of a little bit of a nail on the head there, though, if you ask me. White versus black, good versus evil, but, whatever. And then they have this sort of small section where Tifa has some memories come back to her about events that happened in the past, where she tries to climb Mount Nebel in order to find her mom due to a story of sorts. They tell the children so they don't climb the mountain, that when they die, they go beyond Mount Nebel, and Tifa tries to find her, resulting in her falling off her bridge along with Cloud, who was following her and rescuing her when she was just a child. So these memories she lost, but after this whole entire cutscene, she fully regains the knowledge of what happened. It only plays a small part in terms of the story, and it's actually kind of negligible because it never really comes up after this. Then you get to a part where the weapons start fighting with Sephiroth directly, and he has his black whispers swirling around him. and he attacks one of them, definitely going after Tifa here. And he ends up injuring one, and it retreats after it's gravely injured. It's not mortally injured, but it's hurt enough that it runs away. It comes back to the Gongaga mana pool and the reactor and spits Tifa out, and she relays all the information that she saw while inside this weapon to the rest of the party members. So this was just kind of bizarre. And I'm kind of wondering what direction they're going with this and why they did this to begin with when the weapons that I'm thinking people are expecting are not the weapons that they're showing, unless they're going to, again, like I stated before, do a whole different set of weapons, or they're going to go through some kind of metamorphosis and turn into the weapons that we've seen in the 97 game. So I'll cut it off there, but there's still more to the Gongaga region I wanted to go over. But I think that's enough for now. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching and have a good one.